at, let's take a minute to look at cultural competence, the cultural competence continuum. You know, many times we hear that there's a cultural competence continuum. We hear questions that are very concerning. We ask ourselves, like, why is it important for you to know where you are on the continuum? Because the truth is, all of us, we are all somewhere on this continuum. All of us. There's nobody in this room could say, well, I'm not on the continuum. No, you're not that special. You're not that fabulous. You're not that special. We all are on this continuum. Somewhere on this continuum, we can place ourselves. What I want to bring to your attention before I get into anything else is where the arrows are going. The arrows are going from cultural destructiveness to take us to a level of cultural proficiency. So two things I want to point out. First of all, I want to point out where the arrows are going. It takes us in that direction. I was at a workshop the other day and somebody said to me, could the arrows go in another direction? And I said, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There are people you're doing worse because of maybe something that you have come across. Maybe you have joined an organization where that's the order of the day. We are here to discriminate. We are here to put down. We have had people, I have known people who have left from one place to another place, and they have gone to a place that is very toxic, and so their practice has regressed. You know, instead of being cultural competent that they used to be, they have gone to a place where of this cultural blindness. You know what? Let me not try to see anything because I'm trying to keep my job. And that's something sad I noticed in my conversation lately, especially since the whole idea of anti-Black racism and Black Lives Matter and what is going on. I see people who are very scared and they're saying, let me pretend to be culturally blind, because if I pretend to be culturally blind, I may be able to secure my job. So there's a lot of layers to this. The second thing I want to mention is that I personally, so let me share something very personal with you. I personally place myself at cultural competence. So I personally place myself here at cultural competence. I do not place myself at cultural proficiency. And you may say, well, Dr. Campbell, you've been doing this for years. You teach this, you live this, you breathe this, you advocate for this. Your personal life is also impacted by this in many ways. Yes. But because there's so much learning for me to do every day and unlearning, I want to make sure I stay in a space of readiness. And so a space of readiness for me is cultural competence, not cultural proficiency. It's cultural competence, because there's always something more for me to know. I tell you something very, very, very funny or very honest. Yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a trans woman, and we were literally talking about the use of the word transgender, transgender woman, transgender female. There's not such, you're not supposed to do that. Transgender people, transgender, all that kind of stuff. We were going into all of that, and I sat down and I was schooled on that. Do I know stuff? Absolutely. But speaking to someone with a lived experience, unpacking, and I was honored that she was able to share with me certain things, I got a little bit more competent in my knowledge yesterday because of that conversation. So I want you to think about that, how ready you are for that. I want you to think about that. What factors help you to place where you are? Think about that for a minute. Where are you? So let's go to that quickly for a minute. So cultural destructiveness. This is seeing the difference and you want to stamp it out. You want to, it's negating, disparaging, or purging cultures that are different from your own. We see this happening with Trump. There's no question about Trump when it comes to cultural destructiveness. Anything that is different from his own. Because I was almost going to slip and say anything that is not American, and then I slipped, because what is American? Because American, first of all, is indigenous. That's the number one. So I almost slipped to say anything not American, and then I corrected myself. Quickly, I corrected myself in my head, but I want to share that with you. Because what is American? Because American is not what Trump is. It's not that. American was first indigenous, right? American is all that you see there, the color, the development of all the people who have come there to make America what it is. So we want to think about that. Cultural incapacity. You see the difference, but you make it wrong. So here's an example that I've used before, where I used to work at a school here in Canada. So when you talk about America, I'm not going next door with anybody today. I am staying right here in Canada and have this conversation because this happened in Canada, right in Toronto here, when I worked for a private college, and the students were told they cannot pray. The Muslim students were told they cannot pray in the building. I moved to that school, and I had to take up the case because I was the director of education. I had to take up the case, and I met with the students because I couldn't find out what was going on, because they were going to sue the school and they had fired the boss before me, and it's a bunch of stuff. And when I realized this was the issue was the president of the time of the campus, or the principal, told the Muslim students they could not pray in an empty classroom. I want you to understand this. So when we talk about why we need to grow, I want you to get why we need to grow. I'm talking about an institution that took thousands of dollars from Muslim women to educate them and say to them, we will educate you, but you can't pray in our building. So I want you to understand what we're talking about. When we talk about cultural incapacity, I want you to get the context we're talking about when we have incapacitated someone and say to them, I don't care who you are, I don't want you here. So you're teaching people how to elevate in the superiority of your own culture and your values and suppressing others. Cultural blindness is when you see the difference. A lot of us, we see the difference, you know. This is what is happening right now with anti-Black racism. We see it. You ask these people in power, they know what is going on. They look around the office and they know there's 30 of us and there's 31 and there's 28 of us that is white. They know that. Don't think they don't know that. Don't think they're not aware of that. They are aware, but they don't care. So it's a blindness. It's seeing the difference and act as if you don't. Act as if the cultural differences you see don't matter, and not recognizing that there are differences among the and between cultures. So actually, it's important for us to understand that. But it's also, I want to take a minute also to talk about the cultural differences between sometimes culture groups. I think it was you, Anissa, that that said a little bit about that. So we have to honor those differences. I have seen group that are already minority who has an issue with another minority group. Your food smells a certain way. You shouldn't be here with your food. Don't bring your food to work. It smells a different way. Why are you wearing that? You know, I believe Canada is right to tell you not to wear that. And it's a minority group is saying that. That's why we have to be careful when we talk about Black. There are many different kinds of Black people. There are many different kinds of Muslim people. We are not all the same. And I want us to understand that the intersectionality of those things are very important. But I want to also to understand in when it comes to power, if you are of a certain race, then you are of a certain race. If you are seen as Black or a certain color, you are seen as Black. If you are Muslim, you are seen as Muslim as those in power. So there's sometimes that level of, sometimes we have a little problem going on because of the proximity to whiteness. Some people believe they are more privileged, and then they actually are a part of the problem. So we talk about cultural sensitivity. So I want you to notice something here. Give me a minute. Let me notice something here. So if you notice here, we put cultural, right? Oh, sorry. Let me go back. Right here, we put cultural pre-competence. So that is where this graph is, cultural pre-competence, which is actually the same as cultural sensitivity. And that is why I wanted to point that out to you. So you see the differences, but you're responding inadequately. So a lot of organizations, that's where you are at this morning. This morning, June the 10th. It's June the 10th? It's June the 10th. June the 10th, 2020, right? 2020 is where some persons are, you have that cultural sensitivity. You see the differences, but you are responding to it inadequately. Yes, we need to diversify the staff, but the last two persons you hired, they don't look different from you. Yes, we need to promote from within, but the last 5 people get promotion, they all look the same. And we keep doing that. Yes, we need to improve on our hiring practices and our admission practices, but you are not doing that. I draw your attention to University of Toronto School of Medicine, as I'm sure some of you have seen it, that they have done an initiative to admit more Black students in the School of Medicine, because we need more Black doctors. We need more Black doctors and doctors of color and more doctors with hijab and more we need that. And so I followed the story about 3 years ago when there were some issues and they were dealing with it. And I can say I was pleased to see the news. And of course, I seized the moment to show the news that they admitted 24 Black students to the medical program come September. That is moving beyond just being sensitive. It's moving to action. And then of course we have the cultural competence, where you see the difference and you understand the difference that difference makes. And you're interacting with the cultural group in ways to recognize. And my favorite word on this slide is value the differences. Value. And then of course we see the proficiency, where we see the difference and we are honoring that. We are honoring that, and people are benefiting from that. So it's very important as we think about cultural competence that we think about those things. All right. So here are some questions for reflection. Why is it important to know where you are on the continuum? What factors help you to determine where you place yourself on the continuum? And what do you need to move to help you to successfully move along the continuum? So that is that. Let me get back to this.